In the year 570 CE, an army of 60,000 soldiers marched across the desert to destroy the house of God. Leading them, giant war elephants, unstoppable beasts of war. But when they reached the Kaaba, the elephants refused to move. And then, the sky turned black. Thousands of birds descended, each carrying stones of fire. What happened next changed history forever. This is the year of the elephant. A stone that has been kissed by billions of lips. A stone that has witnessed the rise and fall of empires, survived fires, floods, and thefts. It sits in the corner of the most sacred building on earth, the Kaaba. We call it the Black Stone, or Hajr-e-Aswad. But this is not just a rock. According to ancient traditions, when this stone first fell from paradise, it was whiter than milk. It was a dazzling gem from heaven itself. So, why is it black today? They say it turned dark by absorbing the sins of humanity over thousands of years. But the mystery of this stone isn't just about its color. It is about the wars fought over it. And one specific year, the year 570 CE, when an entire army of massive beasts marched to destroy the Kaaba and crush the stone into dust. This is the story of the Year of the Elephant, a moment that changed human history forever. To understand the attack, we must travel back to the 6th century, to the land of Yemen. The ruler was a man named Abraha al-Ashram. He was a powerful viceroy of the Aksumite kingdom of Ethiopia. Abraha was ambitious, wealthy, and hungry for power. He looked at the map of Arabia and saw something that bothered him. Every year, thousands of Arabs would travel through the scorching desert, ignoring his beautiful cities to visit a small, simple, cube-shaped building in Mecca. Abraha couldn't understand it. The Kaaba had no roof, no golden walls, no jewels. It was just stones and mud. Yet, the reverence for this house of God was unbreakable. Driven by jealousy and a desire to control the trade routes, Abraha made a decision. He said, "I will build a cathedral so magnificent that the Arabs will forget the Kaaba." He called it Al-Khalil's. It was an architectural marvel of its time. He imported marble from castles, gold from treasuries, and mosaics from the Byzantine Empire. It was built to dazzle the eyes. The doors were plated in gold, the floors shone like mirrors. Abraha sent out a decree. The pilgrimage is now changed. No one goes to Mecca. Everyone comes to Al-Khalil's. But he underestimated the faith of the tribes. To the Arabs, the Kaaba was not just a building, it was the legacy of Abraham and Ishmael. It was the heart of their identity. When the news of Abraha's decree reached them, they were furious. And then, one night, an incident occurred that would ignite a war. A man from the tribe of Canaan, deeply insulted by Abraha's challenge to God's house, traveled all the way to Yemen. Under the cover of darkness, he entered the pristine golden cathedral of Al-Khalil's. He didn't come to pray, he came to defile it. He relieved himself inside the sanctuary, smearing filth on its holy walls, sending a clear message: your gold means nothing to us. When Abraha woke the next morning and saw what had happened, his rage knew no bounds. He didn't just want to punish the man, he wanted to punish the source of this defiance. He swore an oath: "By God, I will march to Mecca, and I will tear down the Kaaba stone by stone until nothing remains." Abraha assembled an army the likes of which Arabia had never seen. 60,000 soldiers, heavily armored cavalry. But the terrifying centerpiece of his army was not the men, it was the beasts. Elephants, animals so large and alien to the desert, Arabs that they were viewed as monsters. Leading them was a colossal elephant named Mahmud. These were the tanks of the ancient world, unstoppable, indestructible. As the army began its march north, the earth shook. The Arab tribes tried to stop them. A nobleman named Du-Nafa called his people to fight, but they were crushed by the sheer size of Abraha's forces. Another leader, Nufail, tried to resist, but was captured and forced to act as a guide. Mile by mile, the elephants trampled everything in their path. The message was clear: resistance is futile. Finally, the army reached the outskirts of Mecca. They camped at a place called Al-Mumamis. The dust from their march choked the sky. The people of Mecca, the Quraysh, looked out from the mountains and saw the horizon filled with soldiers and beasts. They had no army, they had no walls, they had no elephants. The Kaaba was defenseless, or so it seemed. Abraha sent a messenger to the leader of Mecca, a wise old man named Abdul-Muttalib. The message was simple: I have not come to fight you. I only wish to destroy the house. If you do not stop me, I will spare your lives. What happened next would become the most legendary dialogue in Arab history. Abdul-Muttalib went to meet the king. When Abraha saw him, he was impressed by the old man's dignity and noble appearance. Abraha came down from his throne to sit beside him and asked, "What do you want?" He expected Abdul-Muttalib to beg for the Kaaba, to beg for mercy. Instead, Abdul-Muttalib said, "Your soldiers have captured 200 of my camels. I want them back." Abraha was stunned. He laughed in disbelief. "I came to destroy your holy sanctuary, the honor of your ancestors, and you speak to me of camels? You have fallen in my eyes." Abdul-Muttalib looked the king in the eye and delivered the line that echoes through history: "I am the lord of the camels. As for the house, it has a lord, and he will protect it." Abraha sneered. "No one can protect it from me today." Abdul-Muttalib replied, "Then do as you please." He took his camels, went back to the city, and ordered his people to evacuate to the mountains. They left the Kaaba completely alone, empty, vulnerable. Abraha gave the order. The drums beat, the handlers pulled the chains. It was time. Mahmud the elephant was turned towards the Kaaba. The destruction was about to begin. The sun had risen over the valley of Al-Mugamis. The air felt heavy with anticipation. 60,000 soldiers tightened their grip on their weapons. The horses shifted nervously, sensing a presence that the human eye could not yet see. Abraha stood tall, certain that within moments the fate of Arabia would change forever. He raised his hand and gave the signal. The handlers urged the massive elephant, Mahmud, to move toward the Kaaba. But then, something extraordinary happened. The colossal beast, unstoppable on its long march from Yemen to Mecca, suddenly halted. It stood still, unmoving, as if rooted to the earth. The handlers shouted and pulled at the reins, desperate to force it forward. Yet Mahmud refused to take even a single step toward the house of God. In desperation, the handlers tried another approach. They turned the elephant's face toward Yemen, and at once it stood and walked calmly. They turned it toward Syria, and it moved without resistance. They turned it toward the east, and again it obeyed. But the moment Mahmud was turned back toward the Kaaba, it lowered itself to the ground. It was as though an unseen barrier stood between the mighty beast and the sacred sanctuary. The most powerful weapon of the ancient world had been rendered helpless, not by steel or strategy, but by a command beyond human strength. Unease rippled through the ranks. Soldiers whispered among themselves. Why does it refuse? What holds it back? Abraha's confidence shattered into rage. He shouted orders at his generals, demanding the army advance, with or without the elephant. And while their attention remained fixed on the motionless giant below, they failed to look upward. From the direction of the Red Sea, a vast shadow began to spread across the sky. It was not a storm, nor a rising cloud of sand. As it drew closer, fear crept into the hearts of the soldiers. The sky itself seemed to move. Thousands of small birds appeared, advancing in perfectly ordered formations. They circled above the army, covering the sunlight, filling the air with an overwhelming presence. History would remember them as the birds of Ababil. At first, Abraha looked on in disbelief. What threat could such small creatures pose to a mighty army? Each bird carried tiny stones light in appearance, yet heavy with purpose stones, prepared and directed with precise intent. Then the descent began. The stones fell from above, striking with astonishing force. Wherever they landed, order collapsed. The strength of the army dissolved into confusion, fear, and desperate retreat. Shouts echoed across the valley as soldiers scattered, calling out in panic, searching for escape where none could be found. The Quran captures this moment with haunting clarity in Surah Al-Fil, and he made them like eaten straw, like dry leaves scattered after being trampled. The once proud army was reduced to remnants, their power and pride stripped away in moments. The elephants, sensing the terror around them, turned in chaos, forcing the army to scatter further. Mahmud, the very beast that refused to approach the Kaaba, remained spared, untouched by the destruction unfolding around him. Abraha did not meet an immediate end. Struck by what had befallen him, he fled toward Yemen, weakened and fading with every step, his downfall serving as a lasting warning to those who challenged the sanctity of the sacred house. From the surrounding hills, the Quraysh watched in stunned silence. They had lifted no weapons, formed no defenses, and devised no plans. Yet below them lay the remains of the most powerful force of their age. As they descended into the valley, they understood the truth with absolute certainty. They had not protected the Kaaba. The Lord of the house had done so himself. So profound was this event that the Arabs marked time by it. They called it the Year of the Elephant, a moment that redefined history. But this protection was only the beginning. Just weeks later, in the same city of Mecca, beneath the safeguarded Kaaba, a child would be born, Muhammad. The one who sought to extinguish the light was removed so that the bearer of that light could enter the world in safety. The black stone, preserved through this trial, now awaited the hands that would one day place it with wisdom and peace. Yet peace does not endure forever. Centuries would pass. The Prophet would depart. Islam would spread across the world. The Kaaba would continue to stand. And from within the shadows of history, a new danger would emerge. One that would attempt what even Abraha could not. They would not come with armies. They would come to steal the black stone itself. For over 300 years, after the Year of the Elephant, the Kaaba stood safe. The story of the Ababil birds became a shield. Kings and emperors feared attacking Mecca, terrified that the skies would open up and rain death upon them again. But in the year 930 CE, a new force emerged, a force that did not fear history, a force that did not fear God. They were known as the Karmatians, or Karamita. They were a radical, fanatical sect based in eastern Arabia, modern-day Bahrain. Their leader was a man named Abu Tahir al-Janabi. He was a ruthless warlord who believed that the Hajj pilgrimage was a superstition, an act of idolatry that needed to be crushed. While Abraha had come with elephants and a warning, Abu Tahir came with swords and deception. It was the Hajj season. Mecca was packed with pilgrims from all over the Islamic world. Men and women wrapped in white cloth, circling the Kaaba, chanting, Labbaik Allahumma labbaik. Here I am, O Allah, here I am. They felt safe in the sacred sanctuary, a place where even cutting a tree or killing a fly is forbidden. Suddenly, the gates of the city were breached. Abu Tahir's cavalry stormed into the sacred mosque. But this was not a conquest, it was a slaughter. The Karmatians began to hack down the pilgrims while they were praying. The white marble floor of the Mataf turned red. History records a scene of absolute horror. Pilgrims clung to the curtains of the Kaaba, begging for mercy, only to be cut down right there. The soldiers mocked them, shouting, "You say this house has a lord. Call him. Ask him to save you." Abu Tahir sat on his horse, drunk and arrogant, watching the massacre. He recited verses from the Quran to mock the dying believers. He shouted, "I am by God, and God is by me. He creates creation, and I destroy them." To humiliate the sanctity of the place further, the Karmatians took the dead bodies of the pilgrims and threw them into the well of Zamzam. The water that had saved Ismail and Hajar was now choked with the corpses of the faithful. But Abu Tahir was not done. He rode his horse to the door of the Kaaba. He looked at the black stone to gem from paradise, the stone that the Prophet Muhammad had kissed. He ordered his men to rip it out. They struck the black stone with heavy iron hammers. The stone cracked. It chipped. Finally, they brutally pried it out of the Kaaba's wall. The foundation of the house was left with a gaping, empty hole. People cried out in agony, watching their heart being torn away. Some historians say that Abu Tahir looked up at the sky and taunted, "Where are the birds? Where are the stones of baked clay? Why does no Ababil come for me?" It was a test of faith unlike any other. Why did the birds come for Abraha, but not for Abu Tahir? Scholars suggest that Abraha attacked to destroy the house itself, to challenge God's authority directly. Abu Tahir attacked the people and stole a stone as a trial for the believers. It was a dark reminder that sometimes God allows evil to prevail temporarily to test the patience of the faithful. Abu Tahir took the black stone, wrapped it in a sack, and carried it away to his capital in Al-Aqsa. For the next 22 years, the Kaaba stood empty. Imagine the Hajj during those years. Pilgrims would travel for months, reach the Kaaba, and see only a hollow space where the stone used to be. They would weep, putting their hands into the empty hole, yearning for the missing piece of paradise. The Abbasid Caliphate was powerless. They offered huge sums of money for the stone's return, but the Qarmatians refused. They kept the stone in a filthy place, trying to force people to come to their city for pilgrimage instead. But just like Abraha, they failed. The people still went to the empty Kaaba. Finally, after Abu Tahir died a miserable death, ravaged by smallpox, the Qarmatians realized the stone was bringing them nothing but bad luck and isolation. In the year 952 CE, 22 years after it was stolen, they agreed to return it for a massive ransom. They threw the stone into the mosque of Kufa in Iraq, wrapped in a sack with a note that read, "By command we took it, and by command we have returned it." When the Muslims opened the sack, they found the stone broken into pieces. The violence of the hammers had split it. It was quickly carried back to Mecca. A master craftsman used silver nails and the silver frame to hold the fragmented pieces together. The same silver frame design we see today. The black stone had survived the fall from heaven. It has survived the floods of Noah. It had survived the fires of the pre-Islamic era. And now, it had survived the hammers of the Qarmatians. But the story of this stone is not just about the past. Today, modern science has tried to analyze this mysterious rock. Geologists and researchers have asked, is it a meteorite? Is it basalt? Or is it truly, as the texts say, something not from this solar system? More importantly, there is a prophecy that says this stone will not remain silent forever. On the Day of Judgment, it will change form again. Today, the black stone sits in the silver frame, polished smooth by centuries of touching. But in the age of technology, a question arises that neither Abraha nor the Qarmatians could answer. What exactly is this stone? For decades, geologists and scientists from around the world have tried to solve this puzzle. Is it a meteorite? Is it a piece of volcanic glass? Or is it something entirely unknown to earthly geology? The challenge is that the stone is sacred. No scientist is allowed to break off a chunk to put under a microscope. However, there have been rare opportunities. In the 19th and 20th centuries, a few samples were examined from the fragments stolen by the Qarmatians. Some researchers suggested it might be a tektite, glassy meteorites that fall from space. Others argued it is a form of agate. There was even a theory that it could be a stony meteorite that floats in water, though this has never been proven. But perhaps the most fascinating scientific observation comes from the British explorer Richard Burton, who visited Mecca in 1853 disguised as a pilgrim. He noted that the stone seemed to have a unique texture, unlike anything in the surrounding volcanic mountains. To this day, science has no definitive answer. The stone remains a geological anomaly. It is fitting, isn't it? If it is truly from paradise, as the believers say, then it should not fit into the periodic table of this earth. It is an alien object, in the truest sense a visitor from another realm. But while science looks at the past, Islamic prophecy looks to the future. And the future of this stone is even more shocking than its history. We know that Allah protected the Kaaba from the elephants. We know He allowed the Qarmatians to steal it as a test. But what will happen at the end of time? The Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, made a startling prophecy about this very stone. He said, "By Allah, Allah will bring it forth on the day of resurrection, and it will have 2 eyes with which it will see, and a tongue with which it will speak, and it will testify in favor of those who touched it in truth." Imagine that. This inanimate object is actually a recording device, a divine hard drive that has been storing the data of every soul that has ever stood before it for thousands of years. It is not just a rock, it is a witness. However, there is a darker prophecy concerning the Kaaba itself. A time will come, near the very end of the world, when the protection that stopped the elephants will be lifted. The prophet described a man named Dul Sulkartain, the man with the thin legs, from Abyssinia, Ethiopia. The prophecy states that this man will march to Mecca, but unlike Abraha, no birds will come to stop him. The world will be so corrupt and faith will be so weak that God will allow him to destroy the Kaaba. He will tear it down, stone by stone, and extract its treasures. It sounds terrifying. Why would the God who sent birds to destroy an army of elephants allow a man with a pickaxe to destroy his house? The answer lies in the lesson of the black stone. The Kaaba is a direction, Qibla, for us. But God does not need a house. The black stone is a mercy for us. But God does not need a rock. When the hearts of humanity become empty of faith, the symbols of faith will be taken away. So the next time you see a picture of the Kaaba, or if you are lucky enough to stand before it, remember the history. Remember the elephants that knelt. Remember the birds that darkened the sky. Remember the thieves who were humiliated. And remember that this black stone is watching. It is a traveler from heaven, waiting for the day it can return home. And perhaps it is waiting to testify for you.